I'm standing in my kitchen at 3 in the morning, staring at my phone screen, and the number I'm looking at doesn't make sense. It can't be real. $127,000. $127,000 in debt. But I haven't used a credit card in months. I haven't bought anything except groceries and my blood pressure medication. My hands are shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. This is the moment everything I thought I knew about my life crumbled into dust. My name is Patricia, and I'm 73 years old. I've lived in Austin, Texas for 42 years, in the same modest ranch house my late husband Robert and I bought when we were young and full of dreams. I worked as a bank teller for 35 years before I retired. I know about money. I know about credit. I've always been careful, responsible, the kind of person who pays bills early and balances her checkbook to the penny. Before we go any further, I need to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. The email came at 2:47 a.m. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom. At my age, you get up at least twice a night, and I saw my phone glowing on the nightstand. Credit alert. Your Capital One account is over limit. I didn't have a Capital One account. At least I didn't think I did. I opened my email with my reading glasses barely on my face. That's when I saw them. 15 emails, 15 different credit card companies, declined transactions, over-limit fees, collection notices, each one worse than the last. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight I thought I might be sick right there. I spent the next 3 hours sitting at my kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me, logging into credit monitoring sites I'd set up years ago but rarely checked. The truth came at me in waves, each one hitting harder than the last. 8 credit cards. 8 cards I'd never applied for, never held in my hands, never even heard of. Discover, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, American Express, Capital One, and Synchrony. The balances ranged from $8,000 to $23,000. Every single one was maxed out. Every single one was in my name, with my social security number, my date of birth, my address. But none of them had ever come to my house. The billing addresses were all different. A P.O. box in Round Rock, an apartment in Cedar Park, a house address I didn't recognize in Pflugerville. Someone had systematically opened these accounts, one by one, over the course of 3 years, and I'd had no idea. My perfect credit score, 802, I'd checked it just 6 months ago and felt proud, was now 510. Destroyed. Decades of careful financial management wiped out. I pulled my credit reports. The inquiries went back 37 months. Someone had been doing this for over 3 years. Buying things, charging things, living a life on my credit while I sat in my house thinking everything was fine. The sun was starting to come up when I finally let myself think the thought I'd been pushing away. Who did this to me? I made coffee with shaking hands as dawn broke over my backyard. I couldn't call anyone yet. It was too early. But I couldn't just sit there either. I went back to my laptop and started digging deeper into the credit reports, looking for clues I'd missed in my initial panic. That's when I saw the phone numbers. Each credit card account had a phone number listed. They were all the same number. I stared at those 10 digits, and something cold settled in my chest because I recognized that number. I'd called it 1,000 times. I had it memorized, programmed into my phone under a name that made my heart ache. Jennifer, my daughter. No, it couldn't be. I grabbed my phone and scrolled to her contact. The numbers matched perfectly. My daughter's cell phone number was listed as the contact for 8 fraudulent credit cards in my name. I set the phone down like it had burned me. There had to be an explanation. Maybe someone had stolen her identity, too. Maybe this was all a mistake, some kind of clerical error. Maybe... But even as I tried to convince myself, pieces started falling into place. Pieces I'd been ignoring for years because I didn't want to see them. Jennifer was 48 years old, divorced for the 3rd time, with a son in college she could barely afford. She'd been between jobs for the last 2 years, though she always seemed to have nice things when she visited. New purses, expensive sunglasses. She'd shown up last Christmas with gifts for everyone, including a cashmere sweater for me that probably cost $300. I'd asked her once cautiously how she was managing financially. She'd laughed and said she'd been doing consulting work and freelancing online. I'd been relieved. I'd been proud of her for landing on her feet. I'd been an idiot. 6 months ago, she'd asked to borrow my wallet, said she needed to see my insurance card because she was adding me to a new pharmacy discount program that would save me money on my medications. I'd handed it over without a second thought. She'd been in my bathroom for nearly 10 minutes. I'd thought she was just using the toilet. She'd been photographing my credit cards. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My own daughter, the baby I'd rocked to sleep, the toddler whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, the teenager I'd stayed up worrying about, the young woman I'd helped through 3 divorces and countless financial crises. She'd been stealing from me for 3 years. I spent the rest of the morning pulling records. I called the credit card companies one by one, the ones I could reach at that hour, and asked for transaction histories. They emailed me statements. As I opened each PDF, the betrayal deepened. Luxury purchases, designer handbags, expensive restaurants, a vacation to Cancun, tuition payments for my grandson. At least she'd done that, I thought, bitterly. Furniture, electronics, spa treatments, a $4,000 laptop. She'd been living high on my credit, destroying my financial life while smiling at family dinners and hugging me goodbye. I sat there until noon, crying, my coffee long gone cold. By 1 o'clock that afternoon, I'd made my decision. I called my son, Michael. He lives in Dallas with his wife and 2 kids, and unlike his sister, he'd always been responsible with money. When he answered, I could hear the concern in his voice immediately. "Mom, you okay? You never call in the middle of the day." I told him everything. The words came out in a rush. The emails, the credit cards, the debt, Jennifer's phone number on all the accounts. There was a long silence on the other end, and then Michael let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for years. "I knew something was wrong," he said quietly. "Jennifer's been posting pictures on Facebook, new car, expensive restaurants. She took Brandon to Disneyland last month. I asked her how she was affording it, and she got defensive, said it was none of my business and that she had investments paying off." Investments, I repeated, the word bitter in my mouth. Her investment was me. Michael wanted to come down immediately, but I told him no. I needed to handle the next part myself, because there was no avoiding it now. I had to confront Jennifer. I texted her, "Can you come by today? It's important." She responded within minutes. "Sure, Mom, I was going to stop by anyway. Need to grab Brandon's jacket he left there. See you around 4? 4 o'clock. I had 3 hours to prepare myself. 3 hours to figure out how to confront my daughter with the evidence that she'd been systematically destroying me. I printed everything, every credit report, every statement I'd managed to get, every email notification. The stack of papers was an inch thick by the time I finished. I spread them out on my dining room table like evidence at a trial. Because that's what this was going to be, a trial. While I waited, I did something I should have done immediately but had been too shocked to think of. I called the police non-emergency line. The woman who answered was professional and kind. I explained the situation, my voice breaking several times. Identity theft, $127,000, my daughter's phone number on the accounts. "Ma'am, you need to file a police report," she said. "This is a serious crime. Do you want to press charges?" Press charges. Against my own daughter, against Jennifer, who'd called me every Sunday night for years, who'd named my grandson after my late husband, who'd held my hand at Robert's funeral and promised we'd get through it together. "I don't know yet," I whispered. "Can I file the report first and decide later?" "You can file the report now," she said, "but I want you to understand something. Identity theft of this magnitude, especially against a family member, is a felony in Texas. Once you file this report and name your daughter, things are going to move forward whether you want them to or not. Are you sure you want to do this?" I looked at the papers spread across my dining room table, at my destroyed credit report, at 3 years of lies. "Send someone over," I said. 2 officers arrived at 3:15 p.m. One was a woman in her 30s named Officer Martinez, the other a younger man, Officer Chen. They sat at my dining room table while I walked them through everything, my voice steady now, anger replacing the shock. Officer Martinez took notes while I talked. She didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened with the kind of professional empathy that told me this wasn't her first case like this. "Mrs. Walsh," she said when I finished, "I need to be straight with you. This is textbook identity theft. The fact that it's your daughter makes it more complicated emotionally, but legally it's the same crime. These cards were opened fraudulently, using your identity. You're the victim here." "I know," I said, "but what happens now?" Officer Chen leaned forward. "We file the report. We get all this documentation from you. We'll contact the credit card companies and start building a case. Then we'll need to talk to your daughter." My stomach clenched. "She's coming here at 4. The officers exchanged a glance. "Do you want us to wait?" Officer Martinez asked. "We can be here when she arrives. Sometimes it's better to have law enforcement present for these confrontations." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to face Jennifer alone, mother to daughter, the way we should handle family business. But another part of me, the part that had spent the morning looking at $127,000 in fraudulent debt, knew that this had stopped being family business the moment she'd photographed my credit cards. "Yes," I said. "Please stay." They moved their patrol car down the street so it wouldn't be immediately visible from my driveway. Then they waited with me in my living room, the 3 of us watching the clock tick toward 4. Jennifer arrived at 4:07 p.m., pulling into my driveway in a car I didn't recognize, a sleek silver sedan that was definitely new. She got out wearing designer jeans and a leather jacket, her highlighted hair perfect, her nails manicured. She looked successful. She looked happy. She looked like someone who had no idea her entire life was about to implode. If you're watching this, and you know what it's like to love someone who's hurt you, if you've ever had to face someone who betrayed your trust, take a second right now and subscribe to this channel, because what happens next, you need to hear. I opened the door before she could knock. She smiled at me, that familiar smile I'd seen since she was a baby, and started to step inside. "Hey, Mom, She stopped. She'd seen the officers standing in my living room. "What's going on?" she asked, her smile faltering. "Mom, why are the police here? Are you okay?" I stepped aside so she could see the dining room table behind me, the papers, the evidence. Her face went pale. "I know what you did," I said, and my voice didn't shake at all. "I know about the credit cards, all 8 of them. I know about the $127,000. I know everything, Jennifer." For a long moment, she just stood there in my doorway, and I watched her decide what to do. Deny it? Confess? Run? Jennifer's face went through a series of transformations in about 5 seconds. Shock, fear, calculation, and then something that looked almost like relief. She stepped into the house slowly, her eyes moving from me to the officers and back again. "Mom, I can explain." "No," I cut her off, my voice harder than I'd ever used with her. "You can't explain this. You can't explain 3 years of fraud. You can't explain destroying my credit. You can't explain stealing my identity." Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Martinez. This is Officer Chen. We need to ask you some questions." Jennifer's hands were shaking now. She set her expensive purse down on my entryway table, a purse I now knew I'd probably paid for, and looked at me with tears starting to form in her eyes. "Mom, please, can we talk about this alone? Just you and me?" "No," I said. "We're past that now. I filed a police report, Jennifer. I had to. You left me no choice." "A police report?" Her voice went up an octave. "Mom, I'm your daughter. How could you? How could I?" The words exploded out of me. "How could you? You took my wallet. You photographed my cards. You opened accounts in my name. You spent $127,000 of money I don't have. My credit is destroyed. Do you understand that? Destroyed. I worked my entire life to build good credit, to be responsible, and you took it all. Tears were streaming down her face now. I was going to pay it back. I swear I was. I just needed time. 3 years wasn't enough time, I shot back. 3 years of lying to me? 3 years of looking me in the eye at Sunday dinners while you were ruining my financial life? Officer Chen had his notebook out. Ma'am, I need you to answer some questions. Did you open credit cards in your mother's name without her knowledge or consent? Jennifer looked at him, then at me, then back at him. I could see her trying to figure out if there was any way out of this, but we all knew there wasn't. The evidence was sitting on my dining room table. Her phone number was on every account. I need a lawyer, she said finally. That's your right, Officer Martinez said, but your mother has already provided substantial evidence of identity theft. We have the credit card statements, the account applications with your phone number, transaction records. We're going to need you to come to the station and give a formal statement. Am I under arrest? Jennifer asked, her voice small now, all the bravado gone. Not yet, Officer Chen said, but we are opening a criminal investigation. Identity theft of this magnitude is second-degree felony in Texas. That carries a potential sentence of 2 to 20 years in prison and up to $10,000 in fines. Jennifer's legs seemed to give out. She sank down onto my entryway bench, the one she'd helped me refinish 10 years ago, and put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with sobs. Mom, please, she whispered, please don't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I stood there looking at my daughter crying on my bench, and for a moment, just a moment, I wavered. She was my baby, my firstborn, the little girl who used to climb into my lap and fall asleep during thunderstorms. How could I send her to prison? But then I thought about the emails, the collection calls that would start coming soon, the destroyed credit that would affect me for years, the betrayal that cut deeper than any financial damage ever could. You did this to yourself, I said quietly. Officer Martinez gave Jennifer instructions to come to the station the next morning to give a statement. They couldn't force her to go right then. She wasn't under arrest yet, but they made it clear that if she didn't show up, a warrant would be issued. After the officers left, Jennifer and I sat in my living room. The silence was suffocating. She tried several times to start talking, but I held up my hand each time. I wasn't ready to hear excuses. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. Why? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. I lost my job 3 years ago. The real estate market crashed and the agency let me go. I was drowning, Mom. The divorce from Mark left me with nothing. I had Brandon to support, his school, his expenses. I couldn't ask you for money again. You'd already helped me so much through the other divorces. I was ashamed. So you stole from me instead, I said flatly. I didn't think of it as stealing, she protested. I thought I'd get another job quickly. I thought I'd pay it all back before you ever knew. But then things just kept getting worse. I couldn't find work that paid enough. The bills kept piling up. The credit cards were the only way to keep Brandon in school, to keep food on the table, to keep buying designer purses. I gestured to her expensive bag. To keep taking vacations to Cancun. Jennifer, I've seen the statements. This wasn't survival spending. You bought luxury items. You went to expensive restaurants. You got spa treatments. She had the grace to look ashamed. I know. It started as necessity and became, I don't know. It became a way to feel like my life wasn't falling apart, like I was still successful, like I hadn't failed at everything. So you decided to destroy me to make yourself feel better. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jennifer, you stole my identity. You committed fraud in my name. You destroyed credit it took me 40 years to build. How did you think this would end? Did you really think you'd just pay it all back and I'd never find out? She didn't answer. We both knew the truth. She'd never intended to pay it back. She'd been hoping I'd die before I found out. The thought made me physically ill. "I need you to leave now," I said, "and I need you to understand something. I'm not dropping this. I'm not making this go away. You committed a crime and you're going to face the consequences." Jennifer left without another word, and I sat in my living room until it got dark, too exhausted to even turn on the lights. Michael called twice, but I didn't answer. I needed to be alone with what had just happened. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. 5 from Jennifer, 8 from numbers I didn't recognize, probably collection agencies that had gotten my real phone number, and 4 from Michael. There were also texts, dozens of them. Jennifer's messages were a mix of apologies and anger. "Mom, please call me. We need to talk about this. You're destroying our family. How can you do this to your own daughter? Brandon is asking why Grandma is trying to put me in jail." That last one made my blood boil. She was using my grandson as a weapon now. Michael's texts were more supportive but worried. "Mom, I'm coming down this weekend. Don't make any decisions until we talk. I love you." I spent the day on the phone with credit card companies, filing fraud reports, disputing charges, trying to begin the long process of undoing the damage. Each company had a different procedure. Some were sympathetic. Others treated me like I was trying to commit fraud myself. The Bank of America representative was particularly difficult. "Ma'am, these charges go back 3 years. Why didn't you notice this sooner?" "Because the statements were going to a different address," I explained for the 3rd time. "My daughter had them sent to her address. I never saw them." "But surely you checked your credit report." "Not as often as I should have," I admitted, feeling foolish. "I trusted that everything was fine." "Trust is expensive," she said, and I couldn't argue with that. By the end of the day, I'd filed fraud reports with all 8 companies. Most of them said I'd need to provide a copy of the police report, which I'd get from Officer Martinez. They also said I'd need to go through their fraud investigation departments, which could take weeks or months. In the meantime, the accounts would be frozen, but I'd still be listed as liable for the debt. "Even though I didn't make these charges?" I asked the Chase representative. "Until the fraud is fully investigated and proven, yes," he said. "I'm sorry, ma'am, that's the policy." I felt like I was drowning in bureaucracy. Even though I was the victim, I was being treated like the criminal. That evening, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw my grandson Brandon standing there. He was 19, a sophomore at Texas State, wearing his university hoodie and looking miserable. I opened the door. "Grandma," he said immediately. "Can we talk?" I let him in. We sat in the kitchen where I'd sat just 2 days ago, discovering the truth about his mother. "Mom told me what happened," he said. "She told me about the credit cards." "Did she tell you she stole my identity?" I asked. "Did she tell you she committed fraud?" He winced. "She said it was a misunderstanding, that you'd given her permission to use your credit, and now you'd changed your mind." I closed my eyes. Of course she'd lied to him too. "Brandon," I said carefully, "your mother is lying to you. I never gave her permission to open credit cards in my name. She stole my information. She opened 8 fraudulent accounts and ran up $127,000 in debt. She destroyed my credit. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime." Brandon's face crumpled. He was a good kid. He'd always been sweet, responsible, nothing like his mother. "But Grandma, some of those charges were for my school. She used the money to pay my tuition. If you press charges, what happens to me?" And there it was. The guilt trip Jennifer had been counting on. She'd spent stolen money on her son's education, making him complicit without his knowledge, ensuring that if I pursued justice, I'd hurt my grandson too. "Brandon, listen to me," I said, taking his hand. "What your mother did was wrong. Using the money for your tuition doesn't make it right. It makes it worse because she involved you without your consent. You're a victim here too. She used you as a shield." "But I can't afford school without her help," he said, tears in his eyes. If she goes to jail, it's because of choices she made," I interrupted gently. Not because of anything I did or you did. She chose to steal from me. She chose to commit fraud. Those were her decisions. Can't you just drop the charges? He pleaded. Can't we work this out as a family? I'd been asking myself the same question for 2 days. Every time I thought about dropping it, though, I remembered something else. The betrayal, the lies, the 3 years of systematic theft, the complete lack of remorse until she'd been caught. No, I said finally, I can't drop the charges. Because if I do, your mother learns that she can do whatever she wants without consequences. And Brandon, I love you, but I have to protect myself. I'm 73 years old. I'm on a fixed income. This debt could destroy what little financial security I have left. He sat there crying and I cried with him. This wasn't his fault. None of this was his fault, but the fallout was going to hit him anyway. I'll help you, I told him. We'll figure out your school situation. Maybe you can get student loans or scholarships or work study. But I can't let your mother get away with this just because she spent some of the stolen money on you. Brandon left a few minutes later, and I felt like I'd aged 10 years in one conversation. Weekend came, and Michael arrived from Dallas. He walked through my door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. I broke down completely, sobbing into my son's shoulder like I was the child and he was the parent. I'm so sorry, Mom, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. We spent the weekend going through everything. The paperwork, the evidence, the police report. Michael was methodical, organized, angry on my behalf. He called a lawyer friend who specialized in identity theft cases and got me advice on how to proceed. You're doing the right thing, Michael told me Sunday night before he left. The criminal investigation moved faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, Detective Sarah Morrison from the Financial Crimes Unit contacted me. She'd reviewed all the evidence, the credit card applications, the statements, the transaction records, Jennifer's phone number on every account. Mrs. Walsh, this is one of the most clear-cut cases of identity theft I've seen, she told me in her office. Your daughter left a digital trail a mile wide. The credit card companies are cooperating fully. We have her signature on some of the applications. She forged yours, but the handwriting analysis shows it's clearly hers. What happens now? I asked. We're filing formal charges. 8 counts of identity theft, 8 counts of credit card fraud, and 1 count of forgery. Given the amount, over $127,000, and the duration, 3 years, the district attorney is taking this very seriously. My stomach twisted. Is there any chance of, a plea deal? Something that doesn't involve prison time? Detective Morrison looked at me with sympathy. Mrs. Walsh, I understand this is your daughter, but the reality is this is a second-degree felony, multiple counts. The DA is not going to offer a deal that doesn't include significant consequences. Your daughter systematically defrauded you for 3 years. That shows planning, intent, and a complete disregard for the law. Jennifer was arrested on a Thursday morning at her apartment in Cedar Park. I wasn't there. I couldn't be. But Michael called me to tell me it had happened. She'd posted bail the same day, though I didn't know who'd paid it. Probably her boyfriend, a man I'd met twice and didn't particularly like. The preliminary hearing was set for 6 weeks later. My lawyer, an older gentleman named Harold Chen, who Michael's friend had recommended, walked me through what to expect. The prosecution has an airtight case, he said. The question isn't whether she did it. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is what her defense will be. Probably something about mental health or financial desperation. Or she'll claim you gave her permission verbally and now you've forgotten. That's ridiculous, I said. It doesn't matter if it's ridiculous, Harold said gently. It only matters if it creates reasonable doubt. Though in this case, with the evidence we have, I don't think it will. The hearing came. I had to testify. I had to sit in a courtroom and tell a judge what my daughter had done to me while Jennifer sat at the defense table, wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, trying to look like a victim herself. Her lawyer argued that I'd given her permission to use my credit, that this was a family misunderstanding blown out of proportion. He painted Jennifer as a struggling single mother who'd been trying to support her son, and me as a vindictive parent who'd turned on her daughter. The prosecutor tore that argument apart. He presented the evidence, the applications with forged signatures, the billing addresses that weren't mine, the fact that statements had been systematically hidden from me, my destroyed credit score, the 3 years of concealment. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Gonzalez, listened to everything. Then she looked at Jennifer. "Ms. Walsh, did you open credit cards in your mother's name without her explicit written consent?" Jennifer's lawyer tried to intervene, but the judge held up her hand. Jennifer sat there for a long moment, and I watched something break in her face. Maybe it was the weight of the evidence. Maybe it was the look in the judge's eyes. Maybe it was just exhaustion from lying. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I did." The courtroom went silent. Even her lawyer looked shocked. He clearly hadn't expected her to confess. "Did you forge your mother's signature on these applications?" "Yes." "Did you take photographs of her credit cards without her knowledge or consent?" "Yes." Judge Gonzalez sat back in her chair. "Then this court finds sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Ms. Walsh, you're being formally charged with 8 counts of identity theft, 8 counts of credit card fraud, and 1 count of forgery. Given the amount involved and the duration of the fraud, I'm setting bail at $50,000. Jennifer's bail was revoked. She'd violated the conditions by contacting me through Brandon, which I documented. She was taken into custody that day. The trial happened 4 months later. Jennifer's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA wasn't having it. She pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 5 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 3, plus restitution of the full $127,000. I was there when the judge handed down the sentence. Jennifer cried. Her boyfriend stood up and shouted at me, calling me a monster who destroyed her own daughter. Brandon wasn't there. He'd told me he couldn't watch his mother go to prison, and I understood. As they led Jennifer away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. I don't know what she expected to see in my face. Regret? Satisfaction? Grief? Maybe all of it was there. This was my daughter, and I'd just watched her be sentenced to prison. But it was also my daughter who'd stolen my identity, destroyed my credit, and betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way possible. The credit card companies eventually cleared most of the debt after the criminal conviction, though the process took nearly a year. My credit score slowly recovered, though it'll never be what it was. I'm rebuilding, one payment at a time. Jennifer is serving her sentence at a facility 2 hours away. Michael visits her sometimes. I haven't. She writes me letters, full of apologies now, full of remorse that feels both genuine and too late. I keep them in a drawer but haven't responded. Brandon transferred to a community college and got student loans. He works part-time and we have dinner once a month. We don't talk about his mother. I'm 73 years old. I spent 3 years being systematically robbed by my own daughter, and another year fighting to get my life back. Some days I wonder if I did the right thing. Most days, I know I did. Because family doesn't give you the right to destroy someone. Love doesn't give you permission to commit crimes. And being someone's mother doesn't mean I have to accept being their victim. I reclaimed my identity. It cost me my relationship with my daughter, but I got myself back. And at 73, that matters more than I ever thought it would.